To start off with today's project, I'm going to cut some tags out of a heavyweight piece of cardstock. I'll start by cutting across the 8.5-inch side at 5 1/4. I'll take the larger piece, and across the 11-inch side, I'll cut at 3 1/4. So this will give me 3 pieces that measure 3 1/4 by 5 1/4 with a little strip left over. The other piece that's left, I'm going to turn this across the 11-inch side and cut at 5 1/4, and then one more time at 5 1/4. So I have 2 tiny little scraps and 5 large tags. I'm going to grab a tag chomper. You can cut this with scissors, but I like this little tag punch, and I'm just going to punch out all the corners on my tags. So this is a quick and simple way to create large tags out of the cardstock you have in your stash. I have a crocodile which sets eyelets and punches holes. So I'm going to take all 5 of these tags and punch a hole in the top. And then I created a huge stack of these. So out of 1 sheet of cardstock, you get 5. I went ahead and created like 50 because I thought it would be really fun to have endless possibilities with the techniques that we're going to do today. I have a bunch of different colors of ink. I grabbed a bunch of stamps from my collection, any old thing, just whatever I felt like. I wanted to do some like leafery and greenery and silhouette stamping. So I dug through and I picked out some stuff that I thought I would use. And then I also have a stamp cleaner. This is a Nuvo scrubbing pad. And I also have my Gina K tidy towel. I also have some stamp cleaner and some water. In this large scrubbing pad, I took out one of the sides of the scrubber so that I could fit my tidy towel in there, and it's perfect little storage. I also have a bunch of different sized acrylic blocks, and we're going to need those for our stamping. So here's the thing about today's video. I do not want to buy anything else. I am so tired of buying stuff and sticking it on my shelf and feeling uninspired. And today I thought I want to make stuff with the stuff that I have, and I don't want to spend any more money. So I'm going to try a whole bunch of different techniques, and I'm just going to get to playing, which I haven't done in my craft room for a long time. I have been very uninspired because all of the YouTube channels that I watch, they're all with the latest and greatest and newest products coming out, and I don't want to look at that right now, So I decided I'm just going to play. So here we are testing out a stamp. I've got a stamp loaded up, and I've got a scratch piece of paper where I just want to test my stamp to make sure it's going to stamp well, and then kind of see if I like it or not. So here I've got 2 different colors of ink. I've got a green and a purple. I think this is Gina K Designs Grass Green and Wild Wisteria. So I'm just going to take my spray bottle. You can't see it, but I have spritzed the stamp a little bit to give it a little watercolor look. And I'm going to stamp it down onto my cardstock. And I love the way this looks. This is great. It almost looks like 2-step stamping, but I didn't really 2-step stamp anything. I just used my ink pads and tapped them onto each other. Now, I'm not super concerned about contaminating my inks. I mean, you could potentially, but I figure, you know what? If I'm not using my stamps, then what's the point? What's the point of having all this stuff? So I'm just going willy-nilly, and I'm stamping and spraying with water, trying some different looks, and I really, really love this. I love that wispy sort of almost lavendery look. I know this is definitely not lavender, but that's fine. It's my project, and I can make it whatever I want. So I did this with a couple of different colors, just sort of tested it out, sprayed it. Now this time I sprayed too much water and I tried to stamp it off. And then when I stamped it to my page, it just kind of looked like a wet blob. So I re-stamped it again over top to cover up my mistake there. And I love that. Looks cute. Now I grabbed one more stamp just to sort of fill in the grass. Actually, I heat set this first to dry off that blob of water. And then I grabbed another stamp, and I just wanted to fill in a little bit of sort of grassy green on the bottom just to balance this out a little bit. And there we go. That's it for that tag. I'm done. I'm going to move on to another one. Now, the great thing about this technique is that I have so many different pieces of cardstock that I can just try anything. And if I don't like it, that's okay. I can just move on. So I just tapped in some colors. I played a little bit to see what I liked, what I didn't like. This one wasn't my favorite. I felt like I got some of the colors too mixed up, but that's all right. Let's move on to another one. Now, this one I really liked. I did a bunch of leaves and I did like a two-tone on each leaf. And I know that these are not actual leaf colors, but this is my tag and my project, so I'm going to make it whatever I want. And I really love the results here. It's really fun and whimsical and colorful. And so I stamped each leaf with a different combination of inks. And then I decided to go in with some second and third generation stamping just to sort of like layer these up and put something in the foreground and in the background. So I like the way that looks. This turned out fun. And now I'm going to move on to another one. I just kept doing this. I made a whole bunch of different designs, and here we are cleaning up our stamps because working with as many ink pads and colors and stamps that I have on my desk, I have to clean as I go. Otherwise, I won't be able to move. So I did another one, and I didn't spray this one. This one I just went direct to paper. I stamped and a few different colors. This was my least favorite tag of everything that I've done so far. It is what it is. Whatever. I put it off to the side. I'm like, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm going to keep moving. So at this point, I felt like I was done with the stamping and watercolor sort of spritzing, and I wanted to try a different technique. So when I do sort of a switcheroo and change up what I'm doing, I like to kind of reset. I put all my colors back together in their little piles and clean up my stamps, put stuff away so that I have room to continue working on my next technique. While I was doing my little reset, putting my stamps away and getting everything cleaned up, I came across a stamp set that I had initially wanted to use to create these tags. I thought this was the kind of perfect style for what I was doing, and I figured I'm going to make this one last one before I move on to another technique. This is the 49 and Market mushroom stamp set. I don't see a name on it, I just see some numbers. When I pulled out the stamp, I was not happy with it at all. It's made from cheap plastic. I did try to look on the packaging to see if it would tell me the type of material it was made out of, but huge red flag, it did not. So if you love photopolymer stamps, then you know when you open up a package and you get that beautiful sweet smell of photopolymer, this was not it. I had spent like $40 or $50 on this stamp set. For it to be made of a cheap material, I was not impressed because I know I'm not going to get really clean results with this stamping. I tried it anyways. I inked it up with some green ink and immediately I could see the ink beading on the stamp. I tried to ink it up and to get good coverage and it just wasn't sticking to the stamp. You can kind of see how the ink beads up. It's on there, but you can't really see it that well. That's a clear indication of a plastic or cheap stamp. Now, this was the first time I had bought a Sizzix stamp set. I love the 49 and Market brand, and I was severely disappointed with this stamp set. I was not impressed at all with the quality of the stamp for the price point. Because I was using water with this technique, it turned out okay. I really did like the result in the end. I decided to ink up with a bunch of different colors. I'm starting with a teal, and then I come in with a purple on the top, and then a pink on the bottom. And then I spritz it with my water and stamp it down. So this stamp was kind of blobby when I stamped it. I didn't really like the result because I couldn't see the image itself. It just kind of looked messy. So I decided to go ahead and stamp the outline with it as well to help sort of define that stamp. I do like the result, the way that the colors turned out on the paper, but it kind of looks like, I don't even know, like, what is that? So I grabbed the outline, I stamped with the same three colors, stamped it over top of the mushroom, and then I was much happier with the result. So once that was done, I went to the stamp set and I found there was these really cute sort of mixed media splotches, and I thought they'd look really nice on my project. So I stamped a bunch of those with the same colors, and then I really like how this tag turned out in the end. So here's a close-up look of that finished tag. The ink helps smooth out because it has a smoothing agent in it. I can still see the little splotchies, but that's okay. Let's move on. So here is a little bit of stamp pad contamination. You can kind of see I got a bit of purple on my teal ink pad, and I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it will, change the color results. So I just kind of swiped on a scratch piece of paper here and tried to get rid of that extra purple. And it worked for the most part. I mean, eventually it'll probably fade out. I'm not super concerned about it. I just used that paper to like dab it up, and it's good enough. I'm happy with that. I got most of it out, and I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to lid up this ink pad and move on. All right, so the next technique that we're going to work with, I'm going to try some background stamps. I thought I have so many background stamps that I love, and I really just wanted to, continue working with my inks and play with these tags and see what other kind of results I could get other than sort of a watercolor sort of spray. I just pulled out a bunch of background stamps from my stash, all various different manufacturers, but they're all red rubber stamps. So how I'm going to work with these is I'm going to flip them up on their back, and I'm going to ink them all up with different colors of ink. I'm going to start with some soft stone ink, and I'll lay the tag on top of the stamp and use a scratch piece of paper to sort of press over top, making sure that I keep one hand holding the cardstock in place so it doesn't shift around. And that's how I use all of my background stamps. You can use a stamping tool if you want to make sure that you get good results, and if you want to stamp a second time. I don't really find the need for it. I like doing it this way. It's easy and simple, and I get great results. So here I had a large strawberry stamp that I had done with my watercolor technique, and I didn't like it at all. So I thought, let me try to stamp a background stamp over this and see if I can improve the quality of this tag. And I liked it way better with the words on the back, so that looks much nicer. I'm happier with that. I could add a sentiment on here and tie this to a present, and it'd be good to go. All right, so I'm going to keep playing, testing out my different stamps, and I tried different colors, and I did like a couple of different things. And at the end of this video, I'll show you everything that I made during my little play session here. So I did 5 or 6 different background stamps, a bunch of different colors, and then I decided to switch over to another technique. Oh, before I do that, I want to show you a layered up result of a background stamp. So I've got a gray ink here. I'm inking up some stripes. I'll lay my tag over top, and then I'll pick it up, clean off the stamp, and then turn the stripes a different direction and stamp again. I ended up doing this 4 times, creating this really cool um, crisscross plaid sort of background. It's very colorful, but it's not too much, and you could lay a nice simple stamped image over top of this and it would look absolutely beautiful. But I think you would need like a die cut or something. A die cut popped up just to sort of separate it from the background, and it would look really cool. So I really like the way this turned out. Okay, the next technique I'm going to work on is some embossing. I have a Spellbinders Platinum 6 embossing machine. I have an electric die cut machine, and I also have this machine. I love it, but I struggle with finding the right sandwich for embossing, especially in my Gemini Junior, because once it gets kind of going and stuck in there, I'm scared I'm going to break it. So I kind of played around with this, and I tried a whole bunch of different things until I figured out the right sandwich for the right embossing folder, because they're all so different. Every manufacturer has a different thickness, whether they're regular embossing folders or 3D embossing folders. And I played around with it until I got the results that I wanted. And here's a look at some of the fun pieces that I made. Now, the white tone on tone looks great, but I'm gonna bump these up a little bit and make them a little bit more interesting with some color. I had struggled quite a bit trying to figure out the different sandwiches, and I had stopped my camera and didn't realize that I didn't press play again. So here's what I've got. Here are a bunch of pieces that I made just using random embossing folders from my stash, and I'm going to do something to each one of these to create a fun look. So I'm going to start with this cloud background. This is the Altenew 3D Cloudy Day embossing folder, and I'm just going to take my ink pad and swipe it directly onto that tag. So just a downward swipe motion. I'm trying to not mess it up, but I don't think it really matters. So I just highlighted those clouds, and I like the way that looks. Just a light little fluffy cloud in the sky. I end up coming back later on and darkening this up. So now I'm going to move over to an Altenew 3D embossing folder that has some leaves on it. And I'm just going to swipe with my green ink, and I'm just going lightly at first until I decide to just go for it. And I end up rubbing that ink right in aggressively into the card. And I kind of like that look better. So more inky, and it just wasn't catching some of the spots that I wanted it to. So I like the way this looks too. This is a really fun textural background and would look great with a die cut on it, something tropical. And then I end up doing the edges of this too. It makes it super quick and simple. Run it through the die cut machine when you know what your sandwich should be, and then grab some ink pads and ink up the cardstock, and you have a beautiful design. Love the way this looks. All right, so now I've pulled in some blending brushes, and I'm going to do some ink blending over one of these embossed backgrounds. So I've got some bright pink ink and a pink blending brush, and I have some purple ink and some teal ink. And throughout this whole video today, I've only used jennycarddesigns premium dye inks. They're my favorite. I love the color selections. I love the way the ink sort of works. I know it very well, and they're my favorite. So I'm inking up 3 different colors, and the best part about this is the new colors that you get when you overlap. So I've got some pink ink, which is Passionate Pink, and I also have a purple ink, which is Wild Wisteria. And when those 2 colors combine together, look at that beautiful new color you get. It's a very vibrant purple, so it looks really pretty. I love it. So I just kind of go back and forth a little bit. I'm not being very heavy-handed. I'm just letting the ink sort of glide over the cardstock and catch on those raised edges to create a little bit of a darker area. And then I've got some teal ink, and this is Blue Lagoon, I think. And I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up into that Wild Wisteria. And boy, do I love the color that gets created with that Wild Wisteria and Blue Lagoon. It is just so pretty. I really love the way this tag turned out. This reminds me of, like, you know, some funky 80s hair bands or something. Like, it's really cute and fun. All right, so that's all I'm going to do to this tag. I just love the way this turned out. I think a nice black, bold sentiment popped on the front of this, and that's all this tag would need, like happy birthday or something fun like that. Super pretty. Okay, moving on to the next technique. I'm just going to use whatever ink is on my brushes and just sort of highlight certain areas of this tag. I love the little circle patterns here, and when I ink up over top of it with the color that's on my brush, it's just really soft and sort of ethereal looking. When I was finished, I felt like this looked like the perfect baby gift tag. My yellow brush had no ink on it whatsoever, so I grabbed a little bit of lemon drop and just added that into a few spots. And I ended up coming in with a pink ink and doing those little flowers with a little bit of pink ink. That's why I felt like this was definitely looked like a little, you know, baby card. Super cute. All right, let's take a look at everything that I've made so far today. I had the most fun that I've had playing in my craft room that I've had in a long time. So I ended up with, I think, 27 different projects, and they're all so different from each other. Some of them I really love, and some of them are not my favorite, but I tried some things out. I had some fun, and I regret nothing. And some of you may ask, well, what would you use these tags for? Well, I mean, that's personal preference. You do whatever you want to do with them. But really, it was just the joy of creating. That's what these tags are for. Just the purpose of creating in my space, not spending any more money that I don't have, and pulling out some of the beautiful supplies that I have in my stash to create a plethora of fun and different, varied projects. And it was the most fun therapy that I've had in a long time. So I've got all these different designs. I've got that water and ink technique. I've got just directly stamping with background stamps onto my cardstock. I even have one with watercolor stamp and a background stamp. There were a couple of background stamps that I really loved and stamped in a few different colors. And then I had that background there that's multiple different directions of a diagonal stripe stamp. And I tried, here's this one here, this little heart background. I tried it in two different directions. And then I've got that ink swiping technique as well, which I loved. And then I have ink blending using a few different colors to create a gradient. Here I've got some grays and blues. And then again with the ink swiping, and just trying different things out, all different embossing folders. Here, this one is those three colors. I love this one. I love the vibrancy. Here I have some light colored blue swirls. Love this as well. There's my baby gift tag, super cute. And then finally this beautiful floral with a few different colored inks to make it look realistic. And that's it. An entire pile of wonderful art projects that just made my day. I really love looking at them and touching them and feeling the different textures, and just I'm really proud of myself, really proud of my creations, and doing what I love to do most. I hope that this video will inspire you to open up your crafty stash and dig in. Enjoy the money that you've spent already. All right, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend almost a half an hour with me today. I really enjoyed this process and these projects, and I hope that you do too. If you did, make sure that you leave a comment down below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Coming up on screen are some videos I think you may enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!